We've got cameras all around the Bay Area. They are streamed to live using some of the latest technology from LiveU.
They are the pioneers of a technology called cellular bonding. This technology allows you, the streamer, to live stream from anywhere that has a cellular signal. Yeah, anywhere.
LiveU gave us the perfect solution we needed. It's a very easy to use, very low-cost solution.
The goal of having LiveU involved was to try and bring parts of the event to the public that the viewer had never ever seen before.
They brought the technicians in, they brought the latest LiveU 600 units in. It's a new HEVC standard.
Well, we thought we'd take a couple of moments while we're waiting to start the live show just to explain to everybody what it is we're doing here. In this crazy world that we're living in right now, everything's got to be produced remotely. So we're no different right now. I am in my living room, sitting at the desk that I work at all day long, and now tethered to a variety of pieces of equipment. So I'm actually using our smart app right now, so you can see a little behind the scenes. Behind me here is the camera that I'll be using to do the show with. And all of that, that camera is getting fed into our LiVU 600, which I have sitting here. Both the smart app, which is bonding cellular and Wi-Fi, so I don't have to worry about the fact that everybody is right now probably streaming a bunch of movies. I can still get good connection out. And then the LiVU 600 is also transmitting basically all of that all back to James in his living room. Right, James?
That's right. So I'll go through a little bit of my setup now. And it all starts under here. I have a LiveU quad server, a LiveU video return server, and an audio interface. So what this allows me to do is bring in up to 4 LiveU feeds, whether that's the smart app, the 300, the 600, like Claudia has at her home, all being fed into the server, which comes into my switcher up here. It also allows us to do things like video returns, so Claudia can see live what's on program here. So in this case right now it's me, and I'm able to do the switching with the Blackmagic ATEM I have here, and all of that's being fed into LiveU Solo at the end here, which is actually the thing that's bringing you the stream on Facebook. And this basketball isn't doing anything, so it's just there for decoration.
So one of the other cool things is what I'm getting back through the LiVU 600, which James mentioned, is video return. So on the screen, I can actually see the program feed. Tonight, though, we'll talk about it later in the show. I'm actually using the LiveU control app on my iPad behind me. You kind of see it over my shoulder there. I'm testing that feature out. Janel Fleming from our sports division will actually be on. We're going to talk about all sorts of fun, super secret features like that. The biggest is actually the IFB. So it's in my ear here. This is allowing me to hear James. We are on a sub-second delay, right, James?
Correct, yes.
And yeah, so that should hopefully help with the flow. And then as we bring in our guests, they are also using the smart app, and they're actually getting IFB through the app. So again, we'll be able to hear each other with very little delay, and hopefully keep the conversation going. So I don't know what time it is. I have to look. Dun, 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 dun. 8:03. We should start the show, James. But before we go, because we sort of mentioned the smart app and how we're bringing in our guests with that, why don't we just share really quickly the little short video you did explaining how that works. Probably a lot easier than me talking about it.
The LiveU Smart app is being used extensively by broadcasting teams around the world to cover news and report live from wherever they are. We've now simplified the LiveU Smart workflow, allowing you to expand your live content coverage with a new guest interview option. With this new feature, you can now conduct live interviews with guests from their home or office without any technical setup needed on their side. To get started, log on to your LiveU Central account and simply click on the guest interview button. From here, you'll be able to customize the device's name, adjust how long you want your link to be active, and choose the video resolution transmitted back to your server. Then, you can simply send a link to their smartphone using email or text message and get them on air with one click of a link. Once the phone is online, you'll be able to choose your channel, set the delay, and start your live transmission. For more information on the LiVU Smart app and the guest interview feature, visit get.liveu.tv/smart or click the link in the description. Thanks for watching. The LiveU Sports Show starts now.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the first ever LiveU Sports Show live here on our Facebook page. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm really excited about our show today, but I'm also excited about the show in general. There's a lot of talk about what's happening in the sports industry. Sporting events, competitions, they're all in a really strange place right now. Events aren't happening. There's a lot of chatter about what's going on. How are they producing content? When will it come back? Racing is no different. In fact, there hasn't even been a NASCAR race since March 8th. And that's why I'm excited about the topic of this show, because it does look like racing might be one of the first sports to start to come back. It's not a body-to-body contact sport, so non-spectator races could potentially start up again soon. In fact, Monday, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, tweeted about how he's working with NASCAR in the hopes that they can open back up the Texas Motor Speedway. And Marcus Smith, who's the CEO of Speedway Motorsports, is actually looking to see if there's any possibility of getting the Coca-Cola 600 race to still take place as planned on May 24th. So that's super exciting stuff. And as all eyes sort of turn towards racing and some of the other earlier sports that might be coming back, I'm super excited that we get to talk to someone who knows a little bit about this. So I'm really pleased to welcome Mike Silac. He is the Senior Manager of Engineering at NASCAR Productions. So welcome, Mike.
Hey, Claudia, how are you?
I'm great. I figure we're just going to dive right into things because your team is essentially responsible for producing all the content across all of NASCAR's digital properties, social channels, and even the TrackPass on the NBC app. That's got to be pretty daunting, especially when the season is active. Covering all of the different activities, providing unique content, making sure it's high quality, all of that. I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about what you do and how you do it.
Sure. We partnered with LiveU when we ended up going with the NBC Sports Gold app. They have a great platform, and so we're able to produce and distribute a lot of NASCAR content, a lot of content that the average viewer is not normally going to see. We found that a lot of the smaller tracks, a lot of the local tracks that don't get that kind of publicity are now able to be seen on the Gold app. And you transmit through LiveU to do that, and it's been really successful for us so far. We've also been able to get a lot of the races for IMSA and American Flat Track on the app as well, and we've seen a lot of positive results and a lot more viewership.
Right, because they can get exposed to content that they normally wouldn't have through the different distribution methods. Like even getting exposed to like up and coming drivers you were telling me about, things like that.
Yeah, it's kind of neat because there's so many young drivers out there at all these local tracks. We're trying to promote a lot of the up-and-coming drivers with acquiring the ARCA series and melding it together with the K&N East and West. And so one of the ways that we're able to utilize LiveU and transmitting to our facility in Charlotte is we'll actually have LiveU units at local tracks A lot of the local tracks that we're working with already have some kind of 2 or 3 camera line cut that they're doing. We'll send them an encoder. They transmit to us, and we're able to record that content at NASCAR and not only record it, but then we can also use the matrix to transmit it to NBC Sports Gold, and they're able to put it up live. We're also able to post later with VOD content. And for us at NASCAR, one of the most important things is we're able to archive it. So as these drivers come up into the ranks and go into the larger series, we have content of them as a young driver, which is exciting content for the networks to be able to put out there when they do make it to the big show and they're racing in a cup race.
Yeah, it's super cool. I never thought about that before, that it is about having content to use again in the future. It's not just putting out constant live content. It's both. So tell us a little bit more about your workflow, though, because I do think it's quite interesting. Everything is out of your facility in North Carolina, whereas all of these tracks are spread out across the United States.
Yes, we have we track at Langley. We have one, I believe, that we're working with, trying to get online in Berlin. We have American Flat Track, IMSA, all the lower series of IMSA, like the Prototype Challenge. And the G3 and all those that don't get a whole lot of, I guess you could say, publicity. They're not aired except for other countries at times. Those go on the NBC Sports Gold app. So what we are basically doing is bringing all those into our facility via LiveU, a lot of them via LiveU, and we're able to not only record but pass those on. So a LU 600 might go out to a track to do a K&N race or a modified race, and we'll bring that back. We'll actually add a ticker to the line cut and maybe some graphics, and we're able to transmit that onto NBC Sports Gold for both VOD and live content. So it's really neat how we're able to utilize the LiveU coming into our facility. We'll decode, we'll record, and then we'll re-encode via an LU 200E over the internet, which we have a great, pretty large internet pipe to NBC, and we're able to send them up to 4 signals at a time for them over the LiveU network. And it's a great network because it's very user-friendly on the web access side. Anybody can really log in, start a stream, check in streams, things like that. So it's been really helpful for us to not have to completely overwhelm our transmissions group with using satellite and ASI and that kind of encoding. We're able to use bonded cellular and internet and combine those to be able to get our content to 2 different places at the same time, which has been really beneficial for us.
Yeah, that's super cool. And then, but on the first mile side, you don't always have to send an on-site crew or send a skilled video journalist. You're actually able to take advantage of infrastructure that's there, like using any robotic cameras or PTZ controlled cameras.
Yeah, we've actually tested some technology with PTZ. We're able to actually control a camera from the Charlotte location. We've done it live before. We've done a lot of testing with it. We tested it and then we did it live, and it worked out really well. It was great for things that we used like our crash cam or a smaller series or something that we're just covering track action when track action's not being covered by the network. And we're able to control cameras from Charlotte and not only record and pass those off to streams as well. Most of them do end up on the Gold app as well. So that's been a successful test, and we've been starting to implement that specifically with IMSA.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a bummer that things, let's just say, aren't as active as they normally would have been this time of year, and I'm sure there's fans just dying to see new content again. So if some of the rumors are true, let's hope so, and we do see racing start back up again, how would this impact some of how you execute your live production? You know, how are you going to do this and still keep your team safe, basically?
Well, one of the things we've sort of been tasked with is to try and minimize how many people we actually have to send to a race, just for safety reasons. And obviously just trying to keep things economically sound. So we are going to do our best to be able to move signals with minimal people from a site and be able to produce some of the stuff, some of the content right out of Charlotte and pass that off to not only NBC, but any of our partners and our world partners as well. I know there's meetings every day talking about how we're going to get NASCAR up and running. Most all of it's still very up in the air, but we're very optimistic. What you said earlier about it not being like a contact sport, like basketball or football, because it's separate, we might be able to return a little bit sooner. We're very hopeful for that. We're encouraged for the summertime. We're optimistic, and we're looking forward to getting back racing as soon as we can. And we're excited to be able to use some of these tools that we've been experimenting with over the past couple of years remotely. We're actually going to be almost forced to utilize the tools in a live setting and kind of take it to the next level that way.
Yeah, that's what we're all doing. It's what I'm doing here right now too. Learning as we go in some cases. But it is inspiring though to hear that at least some of the remote production technology is actually something that will help assist you as some of the production gets back to normal, because you do need to keep people safe, and it does help reduce costs, as you were saying. So even if some of the events that you were covering, you did have an on-site production truck, you're definitely not going to try to employ that anymore and try to do everything remotely from your facility, because it's less people, less exposure.
Yeah, and we currently do 10 of the 12 IMSA series out of the NASCAR Plaza in one of our control rooms there. So we're bringing back up to 32 cameras and doing a full-on production for NBC on the broadcast channel right now. So that's kind of where we started out, just diving into that and doing some ARCA races several years ago remotely, bringing 6 or 8 cameras back. So we have a lot of experience and practice doing it. Now we're just trying to be able to get as much content as possible in the same kind of workflow, just getting cameras out there, getting signals back, being able to do it with the bandwidth that we have. In some places, bandwidth can be very limiting, and that's been a challenge for us. Bandwidth can be spotty sometimes when it comes to bringing data back and important information, comms to the cameras, comms to the people that are out in the field. If those things fail, we kind of all fail. So those are some of the challenges that we've had. But over the past couple of years, we've really dove into how to achieve that. And we're enjoying the technology. LiveU's been great, using the IFBs, being able to to communicate to our camera guy in the field, sending content back from the pack directly in more of a VOD style, where you could just have it in a bank somewhere where you can post it, has been really helpful. So we've been trying to learn how to use these tools, and not only that, kind of work them into a workflow for production. Because it's not just about having the tool, it's being able to implement it in a way that people that aren't used to doing it this way are going to be able to take what we're giving them and understand how to take the next step in the production to be able to move that content to where they need it to go quickly.
That's awesome. I hope we get back to the point where we're seeing tons of content starting to come out again. I'm sure fans are clamoring for it. We all know that sports is a big relief, especially in times of stress, and I think we all could use some fun and excitement such that racing can bring to us. So I'm inspired, and I hope that in just a short few weeks, we might see some stuff happening again. So I don't know if we had any questions for Mike specifically, but if not, James, anything coming through on chat right now?
We have, does LiveU work in a situation where there are right turns?
I guarantee it does.
Thank you, whoever that was.
Guarantee it does.
I have a funny idea.
We've done it. Yep. We prefer left turns, though.
On that note, yeah, exactly. On that note, I want to thank you, Mike. This was really interesting behind-the-scenes stuff that we don't get often to hear. So I appreciate you joining us today, and I look forward to seeing what you and your team can bring us, hopefully very soon. So thanks so much. So I know you guys have heard a lot about remote production, meaning capturing content in one location and then sending it all back to a home studio, a remote location for not only live production to broadcast, but also live distribution across multiple platforms. So I thought we would take a little bit of time to welcome Janel Fleming. Janel's our head of LiveU Sports here in the U.S., and she's worked with a variety of our sports customers who are all looking towards remote production and the different tools that are available. So in our next segment, Janel's going to help us learn a little bit more about that. And our segment is appropriately titled Remotely Interesting. All right. Welcome, Janel.
Hi, Claudia. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's good to see you again. Janel and I work together, so we see each other quite often, only virtually these days over Zoom, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, Janel, so many sports productions were looking and implementing at-home or REMI production because it was one of the biggest trends. It helps save money, reduces travel, as we heard from Mike, but also offers some flexibility in being able to produce even more content because you can cover events, like as Mike was saying, covering some of the smaller tracks and up-and-coming racers that there normally wouldn't have been a budget for, or maybe even an audience because they didn't know about it before. So, some of the teams and leagues now even are looking to create content because there are no games. So before we even discuss all those possibilities, I thought maybe you could take us through a little bit about what at-home production actually is.
Sure, happy to. So production in general traditionally is rolling up a truck, plugging into an I/O panel where all of your cameras are cabled to, and your video switcher, your replay, all of your staff, the high end and low end from people who are running cables to directors, TDs, they're all on site. So what at-home production really is bringing those people, those high level people home and producing the same event but remotely. So remotely interesting is aptly named for this segment. What it really is you're backhauling the individual camera feeds into your video switcher that sits in a location that could be, as far as across the state, across the country, sky's the limit, right? So the idea really is to save costs on travel expenses, but there's also a much more scalable aspect to this, which I always say, you can do more productions. You can actually, that money that you save whenever you're, not traveling and not doing per diem or not rolling a truck on site and using equipment one time, then having to go to the next event the next week. This is a scalable workflow, right? Rather than rolling a truck and then having to go to the next event, maybe across the state, maybe across the country. You can do an event the next day, really shipping the LiveU units and cameras in an airplane from one location to the next. So scalability wise, the at-home production workflow is really easy to adopt. And I always say, I'm not talking really so much about, Major League Baseball or NFL. I think more it's a great workflow for a college athletic or university who maybe has, 2 or 3 ballparks or basketball venues on site, but then they've got the baseball, venue off site, or they want to do Olympic sports like beach volleyball or rowing. Right? They need to adopt a workflow so that they can meet the demand of doing more events for their college or university. So that's really the aim here, as well as, what we call sort of tier 2, tier 3 sports, right? Rugby or lacrosse or disc golf, these sports that may not have a ton of fans, but there is a hunger out there for extra sports content, especially now because there's no sports content. But I think the at-home production workflow allows a really low-cost way to do this. So that's a high-level overview of it.
And that's perfect. I think even James might even have a graphic that we can show because to your point, it is about starting out simply. Even Mike said in some cases, it's just one camera. They're just getting almost like a background feed to utilize for content, but that it can then go up from there. And that it's not just the remote camera and the backpack that's transmitting the feed. There are a lot of other things that can be done to sort of elevate the production as your budget grows or the sophistication of your production grows, like with things like tally lights, IFB, two-way comms, return video, as you add more and more cameras to, let's say, cover that event. So I don't know, maybe James can share that graphic, and Janel, you can kind of talk about how some of that two-way, bi-directional content can go as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, you're backhauling individual camera feeds to your centralized facility, wherever that lives. So with LiveU specifically, it's, each camera is married to a LiveU encoder that's bonding, between 3 and 7 network interfaces, depending on what situation you're in. So each one of those cameras and each one of those encoders are set to the same time stamp and the same delay. It's what we call precision timing in the LiveU world. So in that instance, especially when you're cutting a game program, right, you don't want to have any sort of not in sync shots, especially if, the forward scores a goal, you cut to the other camera and then you got to wait, 2 milliseconds or so to see that go into the net, right? We don't want that. So precision timing is critical in any sort of REMI at-home production, something you don't really think about as much in a cabled or on-site production. So as that happens, that's coming into a LiveU server, as you can see in the graphic here. And that server is outputting the connections into your video switcher, where you're doing your line cut and you're feeding some signal probably into the replay system, and everything that's involved in a traditional production is still there. It's just not on site, right? So the elements that we've built in and sort of evolved this at-home production include video return, which I'm actually utilizing right now, which I'll show you in a second. And most importantly, right, comms and IFB. It's super important for the director to be able to communicate to the camera operators in the field, when they're ready and when they hit take, so they know when they're on, so we don't see any whip pans as we cut between different camera angles. Operators need to be keyed in. And then, of course, that marries perfectly with tally, right? So knowing when they're on air is critical. And, not only for game content, we also use this at-home production solution for talent, for pre and post-game shows, especially with sports betting come online. There's a lot more of a demand for pre-game content to see, where the line cut is and that whatnot. So talent, knowing which camera to look at while they're going on, tally becomes, enormously important, as well as video return, right? You want to see what the program line cut actually is. Yeah. So this diagram shows pretty much every element of that.
Yeah, why don't you show that? Because it is pretty cool. Because you're only using the Smart app to be on our show, but you need to see what's happening. You need to know that James put the graphic up so you can describe it. So show us.
Yeah, so actually I didn't tell you guys this, but I swapped out my Smart app so that I could use the video return on my phone. So I'm actually plugged into a camcorder and an LU300. But my iPhone is actually showing the program cut that James is doing. So I can actually look at what, the conversation between Mike and Claudia, and then the graphic that he just saw. Oh, there she is, see? So, yeah.
It's super, super cool. And I loved what you touched on, which is that, because it's applicable now. You were touching on, it's not just the actual game or competition or event where you envision multiple cameras all around a baseball field. It also is the pregame show where there may be a press conference or coach interviews or talent that they have for their own program, just to give fans a play-by-play before and after the actual gameplay. So in that respect now, today, where there are no games going on, we have a lot of customers that are actually leveraging this tech that they had, and they're doing commentating, and they're playing maybe some of their highlights and talking about the best games of the previous season, but they're still producing it remotely.
Yeah, I mean, this, as awful as, what's going on is, it is opening a lot of eyes to the technology that's been out there, but has never really been in high demand and really not been able to be truly tested until recently, right? So, although there are no live sporting events, our networks and our customers are getting very innovative with what kind of content to put out there. So whether that's Fox Sports doing iRacing and being able to leverage LiveU to bring back all of the drivers and distribute that content to the network from the production that's being done out in, I think, Boston, as well as, their normal NASCAR talent, calling the games from their living rooms and that sort of thing. So they're really getting a sense of how they're getting comfortable, right, with doing this stuff, not all on site and in the truck. It's fascinating to see how quickly we're adopting and how much phenomenal feedback I'm even getting from customers who are starting to leverage this. The broadcast network's got to push content out. Some of them are doing some older games and commenting on them recently. Some of them are adopting like an esports or in the Fox Sports sort of a simulation-like programming. So having them use LiveU Smart, which is, obviously what you saw Mike Silac use and what we're doing for the show, as well as our portable encoders, our video return, IFB, all of these elements so that we can, really bring some content to viewers and some relief to all of this. So it's great to see. And I hope it continues afterwards and allows people to do more content and realize it's not that, it's not that difficult. It's super easy to adopt. And I think we're gonna have a lot of product experts after this.
Yeah, I agree. I might be one of them at a certain point. But
you are.
I'll give a little sneak preview though, since you mentioned it. One of our upcoming episodes, we actually will be talking to a particular league that was able to keep their original schedule, not by playing soccer, but by actually playing virtual soccer and distributing that content, not just online, like on social media, but also by being able to distribute it on broadcast linear television. But that's coming up in a future episode. Let me go to James, because I don't even know if you've been trying to interrupt us. Do we have any questions? I know we just covered a lot regarding at home.
Not currently, but we can wait. I can gather a bunch of questions for the end of the show if you'd like to. But as of right now, I think we're good.
Okay, then, I honestly, I think Janel covered a ton. So maybe we let her take a breath. And just remember, everyone, we'll post a link in the chat, and that'll take you to a sports focused page. You can easily ask any question in the form on there, and one of our experts will respond to you pretty quickly. So let me thank Janel and let her take a quick break from
Thank you.
all that good information she gave us. Yes. So, maybe what we'll do is I'll just say, thank everybody for joining us for this first show. I hope it was informative and I hope it was enjoyable. And we have a lot more interesting customers coming up soon. In fact, I'll give a little plug for next week. Tomorrow is the NFL draft, and it is taking place completely virtually. If you guys have checked out online, the WNBA actually just did their draft completely virtually and had astronomical viewers on social, but also during the live streams. So we're going to be excited to talk to the New York Jets next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here. And they're going to take us through what they did to cover the NFL draft, talk about some of the technologies, maybe share with us what worked, what didn't work. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But otherwise, I just want to say thank you all for joining us. Looking forward to talking to you all again on next week's show, and see you all soon. Bye.